During 1988, Sue Exline and Frank Moshbacher both worked as fire information officers. Frank with Rick Gale's Area Command Team in West Yellowstone, and Sue with a Type 1 Incident Command Team on the Clover-Mist Fire that burned near the communities of Silvergate and Cook City. So, with their assignments as fire information officers, Sue and Frank had to constantly deal with one pressing, urgent concern: fear, and how fear can suddenly change through gossip into anger and frustration. In the following podcast, they discuss how they managed fear and suggest methods for you to deal with it today.
To me, fear is driven by lack of knowledge, communication, information. And I believe that we as people can deal with anything as long as we have facts to be able to make decisions. And when you aren't sharing information and people don't have that information to be able to say, hey, you know, the fire's getting kind of close, should I evacuate, should I not? It's the fear of the unknown that most likely drives people to react the way they do. And so if you are trying to give them the best possible information, you're speaking to them, you're there, you're visible, you know, then I think they have a better sense of how they deal with that fear, how they deal with that, you know, what is it going to do to me personally? But it's that lack of knowledge, it's poor communication that causes fear in people and then causes them to react. It starts all of these, what we always refer to as there's all these informal channels of communication that start from fear. Today we have it through the internet. You know, there it was, informal channels of people talking to people, getting facts incorrect. You know, media getting facts incorrect.
Experienced in fighting fear, and that was the number one enemy that I was working with was fear. And the way you normally fight that is with accurate, easily accessible information. And so the focus was on that enemy right there as we got into it. But the bigger picture, we started seeing that Joan Anselmo, who is the park PAO and under siege a lot, was very actively involved in the information program, and then here I was setting up something in West Yellowstone. And so there came to be an understanding that we would focus on what was going on with the fires, just the facts. Here's what's happening with the fires. And she would deal with park policy as we got into it. And I felt relieved. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was better because we had that understanding. And we blended. I think the biggest realization that information is not just information is information came when CNN wanted to interview me about the North Fork fire and what it might be doing. And I conducted that interview in front of the gates to West Yellowstone, the gates to the park. And then I did hear from Bob Barbie. He says, oh, that was interesting. I saw this Forest Service guy talking about the park out there. And so we had an understanding about the difference of roles. And I really wanted him to be successful. So that, you know, there's no question in my mind that his success and the overall success of the incident were intertwined in how we rolled out the information. We made sure people were informed, regardless of what the facts were. I said that wrong. We were very concerned about the facts. If the facts were negative, if some strategy was not working, we talked about the strategy that was not working out there. So it was not to put a smiley face on something that didn't need to have one of those.
Transparency in decision-making, transparencies in thought processes, you know, I think if we had probably done a better job of talking to people about building this fire line and, you know, what was the reasons behind it, what were the risks that you were taking, you know, all of those things, explaining those in probably being more transparent in some of the strategic thinking that was going on about fire building builds credibility and trust and also helps with your vulnerability. It shows a vulnerable side of you. Yes, we have risks that we're taking. You know, when that fire jumped that fire break, I got to tell you, there was a lot of lost trust and credibility with that community that these fire managers really knew what they were doing. But you know, if you're sharing all of that decision space with them and what it takes to fight fire, and you know the tools that you've got in the toolbox and the the conditions you've got to have on the ground. All of these things come into factors. I mean, that's all transparency in your processes on fighting fires. I think you build better credibility and trust with people.
Well, I would say that coming into the fire information side of things, that you need to acknowledge that there's a body of knowledge that needs to be understood as you go into it. So you can go to your basic training and you can come out and you can perform in a basic trainee way. But in order to keep up with fighting the fear and filling the information vacuum, you really need to be able to continue looking at in a strategic way, looking out there. And I believe that those principles we talked about with, I don't care what you say till I know you care, so how do I show I care? I'm going to fill that information void, and I'm going to fight the fear of the folks who are locally affected by the incident in here. And the rest, the farther out you get with the information, like the media, the more the entertainment factor kicks in.
Using the suggestions provided by Frank and Sue, discuss with your fire organization how you will deal with the fear and gossip that are the inevitable byproducts of large fire events. Begin with these questions. Are you prepared to quickly get the facts out to the public? Have you thought through what a transparent decision-making process might look like? Do you have a plan in place, understood by all, of how to disseminate critical factual information? Then, before an extraordinary fire event occurs on your unit, increase your resilience by practicing the process you have just developed. Practice makes perfect.